Thank you, and I welcome the opportunity of contributing to this debate in relation to the National Children's Hospital. First of all, we have to start from the basis of the information that was provided to the Public Accounts Committee recently, that the estimated cost on the day the figures were presented to the Public Accounts Committee was 1.7 billion. Nobody believes that's the final figure, because as already been well remarked, that there is in that contract an agreement that if construction inflation goes over 4%, the additional cost goes on to the project. So 1.7 is the baseline figure as the date that figure was announced. It will escalate. It can only escalate based on the contract that you have signed, that the government has signed on this matter. The cost will increase significantly, and I'm quite satisfied that the government has no idea where this is going to end up yet. Next thing I do want to say, I find it interesting, the government's response to this in the beginning of the year was to invite PwC to look at the issue, review the cost escalation issue. That to me was a PR stunt, and aspects of that originally draft terms of reference were pathetic and have been improved as a result of the contribution of Fianna Fáil. However, it's far more important. I have the document in front of me here, National Paediatric Hospital Development Board report on preliminary observations in relation to the construction capital cost escalation of the National Children's Hospital. Final report issued 17th of December 2018 by Mazars. So within 6 weeks of doing that, the government says, hey presto, we'll appoint PwC to look at the cost escalation issue. Farcical. You have the report in front of you, and that report says, on the basis of the detail outlined in the report, it is clear that a number of capital projects, fundamental systems and checks and balances fail to protect the board from a large sudden increase in costs of construction. The cost estimation procedures used to produce the original capital budget did not serve their intended purpose, and it goes on to say the ongoing cost management systems failed to properly capture a significant element of the capital budget implications of the developing design. So, in other words, you knew at Christmas, and what do you come do the beginning of the new year? We'll have a new one. Minister, that's on your desk already. I don't know why you need a new one. Next thing I have to say, this PwC report is geared financially to look at the costs and re-engineering the construction costs. The construction cost of this project, as presented to the PAC, is 1.4 billion out of 1.7 billion, which means that over 1/3 of the costs associated with this are got to do with ICT and kitting out the equipment and electronic equipment, not construction costs, which won't even come into this because those costs won't come to be incurred for a number of years yet, bearing in mind the hospital is not scheduled to be open until 2023. So how anyone can even think for a minute that the level of escalation of costs we've had to date, that there will be no further cost increases between 2019, 2021, 22 and 23 until its operation, at Disneyland, to even think that this cost will remotely hold. I am saying not only will it be in excess of 2 billion, it will be closer to 2.7 billion than 1.7 billion. And if any of us are around here in a few years' time when that hospital comes to be open, I can guarantee you my remarks might even have understated the actual situation. Why are we in this mess? We're in this mess because the government wanted a PR voter call to get construction going on the site. The project was so long in gestation, the failed issue in the matter, no matter what, there was the debate about where it should be located. The best thing is get the contractor on site now. Do we have the hospital designed? No. But does that matter? No. We get the contractor on site. He can do the groundwork. And sure, we'll talk about the design of the hospital after he's on site. Whoever brought anyone in to build a house and put the contractor on site before you designed the house? It must rank as the biggest grade of commercial incompetence by any government ever, and this is extraordinary that this is what happened. And the second half of that was they made a provision, this two-stage contract, but sure, when we get stage one done, we're going to have options in relation to we can keep BAM on site, or else we can re-tender phase 2, or else we can suspend the project. And it has been admitted. The Minister said suspend the project wasn't a real option. Re-tender would have delayed the project. Oh, so that would have been bad for PR for the government if the BAM had to leave the site, if they didn't win the tender for phase 2, and it might delay it a few months. And that PR situation was unacceptable to the government. So we started a contract for good. The government wanted good PR. They locked themselves into dealing with BAM, and even the contractor said if the BAM was being delayed on site by the government delay in making a decision in terms of moving on to phase 2, they could be compensated for every single day they were going to be delayed. That's how bad the government contract was in relation to this. So that's where this problem began and ended. PR and politics overruled all commercial sense and how a contract should be dealt with. I would also have to say, and share what Stephen Donnelly said, where contracts run for 5, 10, 15 years, there should be every couple of years a full root and branch assessment. Is this going where we had originally planned? Is the requirements, have they changed? And I think those issues need to be done as part of good governance. I also want to ask the question is, there's obviously been significant change in design over the period from when work started, and these changes in design would have led to substantial new increases in costs. And did those changes in design that led to increased costs, those changes, are they in line with current EU procurement rules? And that has not been asked, and I would like to see an answer to that issue as well. This leads on to the bigger issue. I firmly believe that the government, who has announced the National Capital Plan 2017 to 2028 at a figure of 140 billion. So let's say the Children's Hospital at 2.8 billion is 2% of that figure or thereabouts. There's another 98% to go. You've showed you're incompetent in the first major project. There's no reason to believe you're learning any lessons, because it's clear you're not. You're ploughing ahead regardless of the cost. And I will say to the government, there is now a need for overall government control in relation to such projects, and I'm calling for the establishment of a National Capital Projects Management Agency in line with what the NTMA did with the national debt a number of years ago. We set up a dedicated government agency to handle that. And the last thing I will say is this farcical comment, it'll be the best in the world. The best in the world hospital means a hospital that has the best doctors and nurses and medical care. You don't say a hospital will be the best in the world just based on the design of the roof. It will be delivered by medical care, not by construction designs.